Iranians that don't like the Islamic Republic still understand how the Islamic Republic rose to power as a direct consequence of this asshole's dad, okay? And how ruthless and how violent that asshole's dad was, and how he was a Western puppet that was placed in a position of power in Iran. So make no mistake, there are plenty of people in Iran who don't want the current administration.
To what extent is this 2-week delay with Iran the result of interventions by the likes of...
Oh my God, we are such a joke country. We are such a joke country. We are a country of jokes. We must be joking when we actually cover stuff like this sincerely. They're talking about Donald Trump's withholding of like his Donald Trump not striking Iran immediately as a direct consequence of like what a podcast co-host has said about him. And the saddest part about this is that it might be valid. Like, that's what's so fucked up about it. It might literally be a valid concern for the administration. Like, under any other circumstance, under any other administration, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. What do you mean Tucker Carlson? Like, as though some kind of commentator is going to actually set back a tremendously consequential foreign policy decision. But like, this is the one time in the one country where that could be a matter of concern. Oh my God. Insane timeline, dude. Insane timeline, insane country. Everything is so messed up. I don't know what else to say. It's just everything is busted. Everything is broken. We are a stain on this planet.
Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or the entreaties of European leaders who want a de-escalation.
Look, the president hears all voices across the country, and he makes...
Go live in Iran? Dude, I swear to God, these dumb fucks, bro. It's so funny. It's like, I talk about the insane violence that Israel is doing in Gaza. They're like, go live in Gaza. I can't. Why would I live there right now? Israel is doing a genocide. Then I talk about Israel blowing up Iran and the potential for an American first strike that might even have nuclear weapons deployed for the first time since the last time America did this on a civilian population. You go live under that. Why don't you go live under the nuclear mushroom? Netanyahu has options to escalate further, which would destroy any talks. With Trump giving breathing room for diplomacy, Netanyahu may play a role he's perfected over years. A spoiler, while Israel can't hit Fordow alone, it has other options for escalation that compliance talks for Iran plus DC. BB's U.S. ambassador has spoken a big Thursday, Friday attack. Do you have any information about the dangerous U.S. Israel-Iran situation that the public should know? Watch 2 for Netanyahu's hawkish allies abroad to attempt to, again, increase the chance of a U.S. strike. From AIPAC to longtime regime change proponents, they see this moment as one they cannot allow to slip away and have more experience savvy plus institutional heft than Trump. Israeli officials appear to be editing contrast and angle on the images in their airstrikes in Iran and posting them on separate days to appear new. The image below clearly shows overlapping details with modifications only to image and resolution. There appear to be many cases of this. The IDF completed several extensive strikes on military targets in the Iranian regime in Western Iran. This was June 17th. And here it is in June 16th. What did the Israeli Air Force accomplish in Iran last night? 20 plus surface-to-air missiles were dismantled before they were launched towards Israel's home front. Approximately 100 targets were struck in Isfahan, central Iran. Around 50 fighter jets and aircraft identified and struck missile storage sites and surface-to-surface missile launchers that were ready for launch towards Israel. I suspect that this is yet another attempt to like distort or overemphasize Israel's military capabilities and try to undermine the severity of or the capacity of Iranian retaliation. But considering that the Israeli Israeli Home Command turned around and said, we are going to lower the restrictions for Israeli society sheltering in place, and then Iran was able to successfully target numerous sites in broad daylight in Tel Aviv in a way that was impossible to contain, from like the Western media and prying eyes that were literally there and filming it. I suspect that obviously both sides are engaging in propaganda war, information war. This is a normal part of global war nowadays. This is precisely what happened in Ukraine and Russia. That's the reason why we don't have accurate combat casualty reports from either side, right? Information is suppressed deliberately. It's difficult to do so It's difficult to completely suppress all information coming out, obviously, because we live in the internet age, and governments have yet to figure out the most successful methods of just like completely stopping information from coming out. But in spite of it all, in spite of the overestimation in spite of the overestimation of Israeli capabilities and the underestimation of Iranian deployment, Iranian like missile striking capabilities, it seems like Iran is still capable of launching missiles that are able to avoid the anti-defense, the anti-missile defense systems, and strike Tel Aviv directly. What is this? Khamenei. Man has a responsibility to understand woman's needs and feelings and must not be neglectful towards her emotional state. Wow, the Supreme Leader is woke from 2013. NTSB recommendations. This is for Boeing. Hold on. Exiled Crown Prince of Iran is on Fox News. I'm sure he has plenty of great things to say.
The regime. So perhaps if they're not as aggressive as they were before, standing behind this regime, that's a good indication that even they have lost faith about this regime's survival.
Fascinating. Thank you very much.
This is a part of the
This
is a part of the consent manufacturing initiative. To be like, this is the guy. Everybody wants him. Everybody wants him to be the new leader. Nobody wants him to be the new leader. They see him as a Western puppet. And Iranians do not like Western puppets. Okay? Especially Iranians that don't like the current regime, the current administration. Okay? Iranians that don't like the Islamic Republic still understand how the Islamic Republic rose to power as a direct consequence of this asshole's dad, okay? And how ruthless and how violent that asshole's dad was, and how he was a Western puppet that was placed in a position of power in Iran. So make no mistake, there are plenty of people in Iran who don't want the current administration. There are plenty of people in Iran who want regime change. It's an understandable desire for many Iranians, especially considering that the Islamic Republic is very repressive, okay? Repressive to a degree that is unironic. It factors 0% into my analysis of who's in the right and who's in the wrong with respect to Israel and Iran, of course. That does not matter. It is utterly inconsequential in this conversation. The only reason why I'm bringing this up is specifically to tell you how this regime change conversation that is being entertained in Western media is simply a broader effort to justify a decapitation strike with the hopes of a regime change that won't be an incredibly destabilizing force, but rather will be successful. It won't. There is no world in which Iran will entertain turning into Libya, okay? Iranians, no matter how resentful they might be of the current order of business, are not going to go, thank God you're killing us. Thank God you're blowing up our beautiful cities that have been around, that have been intact for hundreds of years. That is not happening. So the more Israel escalates this violence, the more they are developing resentment towards Israel in Iran, which already existed. And not only that, okay, but also Khamenei is perhaps the best, most diplomatic person to hold centralized power in Iran. And this is the only reality that has caused the American-backed coalition from escalating further instantly. I covered this yesterday from analysis from a academic that specifically covers Hezbollah. Destabilization in Iran will cause tremendous retaliation to take place in the entire region. Khamenei is a beacon of restraint in comparison to what might unfold. Sure, there is no logistical supply chain of missiles and rockets that you can send to Hezbollah or the Houthis or whatever once the regime is decapitated. But the people are also no longer going to be listening to a force that is demanding restraint, even to a fault at certain points, because of their interest in avoiding further casualties for their own population. Because Khamenei has an obligation as a leader of a state, as a head of a state, he has an obligation to avoid human casualties. Every head of state operates with this boundary, no matter how violent they are. Even Vladimir Putin makes this calculation at times. Okay? It's the reason why he won't use a nuke, for example, because if he uses a nuke, then, his entire country is going to be nuked. It's a mutually assured destruction. Every head of state has this obligation, no matter how violent they are. Israel has this obligation. Israel also has this obligation. The problem with Israel is that they feel a false sense of infallibility, and because of the past 77 years of occupation and violence that they've dished out with very little retaliation in return, Israel has a tendency to miscalculate how strong their defenses actually are. What you are watching right now in these tit-for-tat Iranian strikes that are taking place in Tel Aviv is a byproduct of Israel's miscalculation. The idea that they are invulnerable, the idea that the Iron Dome is the greatest piece of technology that can always protect Israel from any sort of severe repercussions born out of their endless appetite for destruction in the region. It is wrong. This is a miscalculation. Do you understand? It's not wrong when you are dominating the captive population of Gaza, because Gaza's retaliatory attacks, the Palestinian and its retaliation is severely limited, and the Iron Dome can create a decent protective banner, with the exception of October 7. But it is not an invulnerable magic shield that just is perfectly capable of stopping every single ballistic missile from entering the Israeli airspace. It just doesn't work that way. And you are seeing that. Grand Ayatollah Sistani in Iraq has also issued stern warnings that attacking Khamenei would descend the region into chaos, despite the differing perspective of Najaf and Qom have over theology, in my understanding. Yeah, there's Shias all around, too. America thinks about its responses and thinks about all of the events that may unfold in the aftermath of a severe escalation of violence against Iran. Do you think they are incapable of assassinating Khamenei right now? Do you think that Mossad, that has been able to penetrate deep into Iranian society, the same espionage tools that allowed them to literally build a drone facility in the heart of Iran and use those drones against the Iranian air defenses before they did a strike on Iranian soil? That same deep penetration that exists is incapable of knowing where Khamenei is at any given moment and kill him? Why do you think they haven't killed him yet? The reason why they have not killed Khamenei is not because he is an expert at hiding. The reason why they haven't killed Khamenei yet is because they're still entertaining different options, from the least violent option all the way to the most violent option, which would be a nuke, a nuclear first strike. They're entertaining all options, but the reason why they haven't assassinated him yet, and instead have basically effectively dismantled top brass of the IRGC, which obviously is not going to be as effective as you think it is, because they have contingency plans. This is a literal state. Okay? The reason why they haven't done so is because I think the Israeli assessment and the American assessment here is that what comes next, the day after, in a decapitation strike against the Ayatollah, could potentially be a much more violent force that is not invested in the same level of restraint that we have seen thus far from Khamenei. Because no matter how the American media covers it, if you actually look at the strike priorities and the weapons used and the intensity of the strikes, Iran has always been infinitely more restrained than Israel. So restrained that maybe it's restrained to a fault. Do you understand? There is no promise that whoever comes into power after Khamenei will be as restrained. But there is the promise that the Iranian people will be galvanized in the aftermath of a decapitation strike that takes out Khamenei. That is a 90 million population, a very proud people that are already very pissed off. So if your goal is to destabilize the country and implement regime change by force, this is perhaps the worst possible way of doing that. Iran has not only been retaliatory and infinitely more restrained than Israel and the US, Iran has not done the escalation. Oh, of course. Dude, you are hallucinating about the Khamenei. He has been fighting with other people's lives for his war for years, and will those countries he's taking advantage of his ideology? What are you? Dude. Just take a deep breath and retype what you're trying to say. I feel like you got so excited to spit out as many takes as you possibly can that you just kind of jumped over your own point a little bit. RGC Commander Mohsen Rezai says Iran has only revealed 30% of its capabilities against Israel. I mean, they do talk a big game, so I would take this with a grain of salt. In an interview with Iranian state media, the senior official made the following points. Iran knew there would be an Israeli attack, but believed it would come after the negotiations, so the timing came as a surprise. In preparation for war, Iran significantly increased its missile production for 3 months. All enriched nuclear material has been transported to secure locations. Iran cannot stop its response to Israel until it assures that it will never attack them again. He also added that Israel intended to plunge Iran into a devastating, chaotic war that would turn the country into a new Syria. Instead, he stated Israel has now been turned into Syria. Yeah, that hasn't happened. My Iranian friends who hate him would hate even more if the US or Israel takes him out. The anti-regime people want to change the regime themselves and would keep the regime instead of being a puppet again. Yeah. I know this from my own personal experiences and what I know of what took place in Turkey. There is a reason why Turkey is the most anti-American state, despite being a NATO ally and despite being a vassal state, servile to American interests in the region, and plays the wonderful role of servant in the region, which Erdogan does all the time. Look at Syria. Turkish people hate America and they hate Israel. Okay? You look at the polls. It's like 90% disapproval for America, 90% disapproval for Israel. Is crazy. A big part of the reason why they despise America is because of the failed coup that took place that every Turkish person understands was directly implemented by the United States of America. Fethullah Gülen, an American CIA asset that created a parallel state in the country. In the aftermath of that, and I repeat this over and over again, while the split in Turkish society was always 50-50, 51% favoring the Erdogan coalition and 49% favoring the opposition, in the aftermath of that failed coup, Erdogan was able to bring together tremendous popular support. He was seen as the guy who saved Turkey from being, being a puppet of U.S. empire and being controlled by an American puppet, which is ironic because one could say that Erdogan is an American puppet himself. He was able to turn around and do a referendum that gave him tremendous power, and people voted for it. So all of this fantasy, all of this back and forth of like regime change, Reza Pahlavi, he's going to be welcomed as a liberator. It's going to happen any moment now. All of that is bullshit. It's just the media telling you why this must happen. And considering how little repercussions members of the media, the professional media class, face for giving wrong information out every step of the way as they bang on the war drums, and this has happened a million times over, as you know, they know there are no repercussions coming for them, so they can just lie like this over and over again. Okay? A lot of people either don't know or don't remember, but FETÖ supporters in Turkey helped Erdogan get elected in the first place. Erdogan only started to break away from FETÖ and started stealing his base once his power was consolidated. Yes. Erdogan also has never stopped being a loyal servant to American interests either. Let's continue. Skipping the Tucker Carlson point.
We are following breaking news. The
Here's
White
the
House
update.
is now...
Trump is going to wait 2 more weeks for diplomacy. Here's my assessment. Wee woo, speculation alert. We don't know how much Israel has in its arsenal of defense. We don't know. That's obviously confidential, but judging by the reports on both Wall Street Journal and everywhere else, it seems like their stock is being depleted at an alarming rate, okay? And Israel cannot entertain this belligerent use of force, this escalation, without having sufficient defenses. I suspect that Israel, not the small interceptors, by the way, I'm not talking about the Tamir interceptors, those are whatever, right? Those hitting the big ballistic missiles that are doing the actual damage. Based on all of the information that I've read on Israeli stockpiles and judging by all of the analysis we've seen so far, as far as like the anti-missile defense systems oftentimes failing to intercept the actual big ballistic missiles, with a bunch of successful strikes on Tel Aviv and all around the Israeli nation state, including the direct impact sites that we don't get to see on military sites, like in the Negev desert and things like that. I suspect that the Israeli defense capabilities are not designed to withstand unlimited attacks for an extended period of time from a country that is lobbing ballistic missiles, okay? Washington Post has reported on the stockpiles as well. Will Israel's interceptors outlast Iran's missiles? The answer may shape the war. Israel's firing interceptors faster than it can produce them. That has raised questions within the Israeli security establishment about whether the country will run low on air defenses before Iran uses up its ballistic arsenal, according to 8 current and former officials. Now, what's interesting about this is just the interceptors. They're talking about when they say interception or when they say Iron Dome, that is colloquially a much broader umbrella of defenses. You have American THAAD anti-air defense systems that were sent to Israel after Operation True Promise 1 or 2. I think it was after 2 that they sent those because those had direct impact sites. You have the THAAD system. You have, which is insanely expensive. The THAAD system is both insanely expensive and America can't consistently resupply, okay? We've seen some of the THAAD systems actually fail as well. You also have Arrow, the Arrow defense systems. Those are for ballistic missiles, okay? You also have the David Sling system, again, for ballistic missiles. And then you have the Iron Dome. What is actually known as the Iron Dome is an Israeli-American project that is there for short-range missiles and drones, right? So all of these systems that they have to be consistently replenished, okay? Because they don't have an endless supply of these missiles. These missiles are, for example, I think the media, NBC tends to use Iron Dome as a stand-in for Israel's multi-layered missile defense, which is very misleading. I'm interpreting the NBC report as entire multi-layered defense system only intercepting 65% of the missiles, including David Sling, Arrow, and THAAD. Iron Dome itself is pretty shit against ballistic missiles. It's kind of a last-ditch effort, as we saw when they deployed like 20 Iron Dome missiles, and none of them intercepted the ballistic missile in that video that we saw a night ago. Now, that's the main question. My speculation is Israel will run out sometime next week of all the big boys that are necessary for the actual defense, because the ballistic missiles are the big boys. Those are the ones that they have to fucking intercept. The drones are limited in their impact. You can overwhelm with the drones, and if you don't have any air defenses, then drones can be impactful, but clearly Israel is very good in terms of the Tamir interceptors, which also can run out, for the record. But these systems are unimaginably expensive, and I suspect they have like a 2-week window. And that is precisely the reason why I'm saying that Israel has to either A, if they're not going to allow, if America is not going to interfere, Israel has to go in and blow up all of the launchers. But they have been incapable of doing this. They have not been able to blow up all the launchers. So as long as missiles are still coming in, they can slow down the number of missiles that they need to intercept, but they can't stop it altogether. So if they can't blow up all the launchers and they're still getting hit with missiles, that timeline might extend a little bit, but it's still going to be consequential as it has been for the past couple of days. This is the reason why America has to join. If they want to do a long war of attrition, America has to join so that American bases will become missile sponges. Because every missile that is being deployed in the direction of an American base is a missile that is not being sent to Tel Aviv. Okay? That's what I think is the plan here. And that's why I think they're going to do this, perhaps speculation again. This is complete speculation. I'm telling you right now, there is no way to know that this is what's going to happen. This is, judging by what I have seen thus far, I suspect that their goal ultimately is to bring in the United States of America so that they can at least change some of the strike targets away from Israel, because they won't be able to defend Israel, to American bases in the region, which are ultimately defenseless, by the way. American bases in the region, if they were struck with these kinds of ballistic missiles, would go bye-bye. American bases in the region do not have the same level of anti-aircraft defense systems that Israel has on Israel proper. The American resources in the region are obviously also focusing on, American resources in the region are exhausted as well, and because they're focusing on defending Israel. There are so many bases surrounding Iran that there is no way that they'd be able to successfully defend every single American base. This is part of the reason why they also pulled some of the troops away and the embassies and the family members of embassies away from the region. American bases are protected by the principle that if you strike an American base, you're striking against America. That's what that's the underlying principle that protects these bases. Anti-aircraft anti-missile defense systems. Okay, they're protected by the fact that there's aircraft carriers in the region, right? But if America decides to strike Iran and enter the conflict, then Iran has to strike against America. Iran has to retaliate against America. Would America ask for help from NATO countries after these hypothetical attacks? No, who's to say that they haven't already? Who's to say that other NATO nations aren't already en route and have been offering surveillance capabilities and refueling capabilities to both Israeli fighter jets and also the Israeli Air Force in general, both in Gaza and in Lebanon and in numerous other places that Israel has chosen to attack? Are you saying you want Iran to attack USA bases? Cap? Okay, shut the fuck up. I'm telling you what I think Iran is going to do. They've already said that they're going to do this. Didn't they strike multiple U.S. bases after Trump assassinated Soleimani, though? Why did that not escalate further? Because the impact was severely limited. That's why. Ironically enough, this is the reason why this is how I think they're going to get Trump to do this. I think people in Trump's ear right now are pointing to how he was so brave and bold for assassinating Qasem Soleimani, which was a severe escalation from the American side, and how limited the Iranian retaliation was in response to the assassination of a high-ranking and very, very famous IRGC leader. I think if I were to be in Trump's ear and I was like this bloodthirsty ultra Zionist, I would tell him, Mr. Trump, this is called peace through strength. This perfectly is within the confines of what you said you wanted to do. You have said time and time again you don't want Iran to have a nuke, and you don't want Iran to be a destabilizing force in the region any longer. This will be perfect for your legacy, and it will be super easy to do. Okay? We have the biggest dicked military on the planet, and look at how the Iranians failed to retaliate in kind when you assassinated Qasem Soleimani. I suspect people in Trump's ear are telling him this. Okay? They're pointing to a time when Trump, in the last administration, did something against Iran that was a severe escalation, and that Iran did not retaliate in response in a way that was so severe that it escalated the conflict. This is why I think I hope this doesn't happen, but my big fear is they hit Fort Al with American weapons, as a mechanism to become to turn the American bases in the region into bullet sponges, basically, and missile sponges, so that beautiful Israel does not get targeted, because beautiful Israel does not have enough anti-air defenses to withstand a war of attrition directly between Iran and Israel. Big, beautiful Israel. So when Trump says 2 more weeks for diplomacy, I don't know if that's the case.
Issued a timeline.
I hope it's true, and I hope it doesn't happen.
For when President Trump will decide whether to take action against Iran. This is Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt just moments ago.
Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks.
Now, in the meantime, Iran claims that it's shooting down Israeli drones over Tehran. And moments ago, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to strike all of Iran's nuclear facilities. Let's go to CNN's Clarissa Ward, who is live for us in Israel. Clarissa, does Israel believe that Trump has 2 weeks' time to make a decision?
Well, we haven't yet had, Brianna, any official reaction here in Israel to this news, this 2-week timeline. But I can tell you, based on conversations I've been having previously, that this is not what Israeli officials want to hear. They had been feeling quietly optimistic. They had given timelines of 24 to 48 hours. I think there's a sense from the Israeli perspective that you have to act when you have the momentum, and that slowing things down and allowing for diplomacy, which is very much the favored option for much of the world, but not here in Israel, that carries a cost with it in terms of potentially losing that momentum. The other question, of course, Brianna, becomes how much firepower does Israel have in terms of keeping up the...
I like that. I like that she said, it's not an option here in Israel. Diplomacy. Not a favored option here in Israel.
Same level of strikes against Iran, and can they keep that going at the same pace for another 2 weeks? So this will really be an open question now in terms of how Israeli officials interpret it, and also how they officially respond to it, because it's been notable that up until this point they have been very careful about not explicitly advising the U.S. to get involved, about not wanting to be seen as trying to strong-arm President Trump or push him to make one decision or another. The sort of party line, if you like, has been very much to say that they are grateful for all the assistance that the U.S. has given up until now, primarily in a defensive.
She said within 2 weeks, not after 2 weeks. So anything can happen in those 14 days. It could be tomorrow or next day. I think the real reason why it would be closer, it would be sooner rather than later, is because of what I just mentioned. But maybe it's just insane speculation. Okay, I don't know. I like I said, we will speculation alert. The reason why I'm just judging by what I've seen thus far, and Israel's defense capabilities. I think, yeah, Friday night after market close it seems consistent with what Trump has done in the past. What you just wait, hold on. This is actually a very funny thing that I've also thought about that I haven't talked about, but where is it? Someone in the chat said, what are the odds that this is simple petty bitch behavior from Trump and he just wants to punish Israel for the initiation of this conflict? That is the funniest outcome, and I don't think that's the case. But I have thought about this as well. What if Trump actually wants to negotiate with Iran eventually, but he's just allowing Israel to experience a little bit of the punishment because he's pissed off because Israel keeps like making him look bad, and he hates looking bad. But I don't think that's the case. It's the craziest. I envision a million different scenarios when conducting this kind of analysis. That's one of them. It's a very stupid one, but you know, there is definitely a pettiness associated with American foreign policy, especially under the banner of Trump. Like, there was zealotry associated with American foreign policy under Biden, ideological zealotry in terms of like ultra Zionist sentiment that I think factored into their considerations, just like and most likely clouded their judgment. But I can totally see that being one of the, I envision that being one of the possibilities. I don't think that's the case, but I have also thought about this as well, where it's like Trump is just kind of doing this so that Israel gets a little bit of, shut up juice and recognizes their place in this dynamic, by force. And it's almost like a pressure valve that you're releasing because there's so much anger and resentment towards Israel that, a little bit of sowing after so much reaping is not necessarily the worst thing from his estimation, maybe, but I don't think that's the case.
Capacity and that they are, waiting and watching to see what President Trump decides. So, as I said before, this 2-week timeline unlikely to be very popular here in Israel. But as we have seen so many times with President Trump, this could well be some kind of an obfuscation tactic.
I spammed this yesterday, but my professor, Yale grad, knows who you are and specializes in nuclear deterrence and is a U.S. grand strategy. No glaze, but watching you healthily dominate classroom discussions, would you have him on? I'm taking a summer IR class at Yale. Maybe.
It's not clear whether this really means that there is now some room for diplomacy to try to play out and to slow down the dramatic.
Yes. Sky News breaking news. Norway Foreign Ministry says explosion occurred in Tel Aviv at residence of Norwegian ambassador in Israel. I find it very strange because Norway is one of the few countries that's like unironically more anti-Israel than the rest of Western Europe. So that's real weird shit. Like that is odd. Let's just say.
Dramatic escalation, Brianna, that we have seen over the last week.
Yeah, very good point. Clarissa Ward, thank you so much. Let's go now to CNN's Kristen Holmes, who was in that White House press briefing. Kristen, just tell us about what you are observing here. The president likes to talk, as Clarissa said, about 2 weeks so often. It's hard to really put stock in what he's saying here or what his quote was as delivered by the White House press secretary.
Yeah, that's right, Brianna. But you have to remember here, we're talking about a very specific thing. In the past, when he's used this 2 weeks, it's been kind of vague, or I can tell you down the road if Putin wants peace in 2 weeks. He is saying here, and this is something we're going to hold him accountable to, I'm making a decision in 2 weeks if we cannot get to the table on some kind of deal here. That is a very specific time frame. Now, we're actually trying to get more answers on this. Does that mean that he is going to authorize strikes on Iran at the 2 weeks?
Oh, by the way, Tommy Vitor kind of glazing his own initiative here as he was a NSC staffer for Obabe. But this does deserve rightful praise. During the fight over Iran nuclear deal, opponents clutched their pearls and expressed outrage when you said the choice was diplomacy or war. Well, now there's a war. The JCPOA worked. Diplomacy works. Democrats need to fight for diplomatic solutions to security problems. As I've said before, it is the Obama administration's signature foreign policy accomplishment. So, yeah, you get to gloat a little bit. This is one of the few instances where you get to gloat. Because if you're not going to do this, then they deserve nukes, okay? They deserve to have nukes, not deserve to be nuked, by the way. Make no mistake, okay? Yeah, January 2016, JCPOA nuclear deal is implemented. This is the number of installed centrifuges in all sites, actual versus planned. May 2018, Trump withdraws from the deal. And as you noticed, Iran still follows. Iran still follows the provisions of the deal that Trump withdraws from. Notice how they don't do this for an extended period of time. They don't actually mention it here, but Trump implements additional sanctions in spite of Iran following the deal. They were no longer obligated at this point, beyond this point, and they still followed. And then Trump added sanctions. So just remember that. It is alarming that under normal circumstances, mainstream media loves Obabe, Barack Hussein Obabe, and yet they have been noticeably quiet on mentioning this key detail. It's very strange because they hate Trump, right? Like mainstream media is liberal, okay? Mainstream media is so liberal, right? They're freaking libtards. They hate Trump. They hate Trump because they ain't Trump. All this shit. So why aren't they bringing this up to be like, hey, there was, I think, an alternative method of dealing with this. And yet it has not been dealt with through diplomacy, even though it was successful in the past. What's that about? All of this could have been avoided if Trump stayed in the JCPOA. If he didn't like parts of the agreement, then renegotiate. Worried that provisions will sunset, negotiate an extension. Art of the deal guy. This problem is 100% Trump's making. There are some people are sending me stuff from Iran. The Israeli Air Force carries out precise operations targeting specific locations in the Loizan area of the Iranian capital, Tehran, where the leaders of the tails, Khamenei, is hiding. So maybe they're doing the decapitation strike now, which would be, I doubt it, but who knows? I don't know. This is the only thing that we've seen. This is the information coming out of Iran is even more limited than Israel. Advisor to the Iranian Foreign Minister, Security Services thwarted a major Israeli plot against Minister Arakchi a few days ago in Tehran. Yeah, one of the byproducts of this has been saying Khamenei's name as opposed to saying Khamenei. This, Hasan, I told you China and Russia is going to monitor B-2 bomber flights to gather data on how to detect them. That's crazy to use Iran as a... That is insane, okay? That's insane to, use the entire nation of Iran, an incredibly valuable ally to especially China, as simply bait to monitor B-2 bomber activity. That's nuts. I can see that for Russia, but doubtful that you still mispronounce Bangladesh. Idiot. Do I? Did I say it wrong? Oh, Bangladesh. Bangladesh. In Turkey we say Bangladesh. That's part of the reason why. Anyway, real numbers though be what? 10%? No clue, to be honest. They definitely intercepted a decent amount from that large barrage 12 hours ago, but they expanded a lot of interceptors on that defense. Regardless, admitting to 65% even is a bad indicator. For what it's worth, there are experts who've claimed less than 5%. The data isn't really there to tell for sure, but I think it's a total piece of shit. I think the media, NBC, tends to use Iron Dome as a stand-in for Israel's multi-layered defense system, but yeah, Iron Dome itself is pretty shit against ballistic missiles. Kind of a last-ditch effort. Bangladesh? Bangladesh falan demiyoruz amına koyayım. Bangladesh diyoruz. Öyle mi? O zaman ben Türkiye'de de yanlış. I was wrong. Turks don't say Bangladesh. I was wrong. Bangladesh is how Turks say it. So they say it right. I was just a wrong Turk. And the entire time I thought that's just how you said it. My apologies. Oh, yeah, by the way, there's a standoff taking place right now. Dodgers and the Department of Homeland Security are at odds over agents' presence at stadium grounds amid tensions in Los Angeles over ICE raids. Chaos unfolding all around the planet. What is Donald Trump doing? I don't know. Escalating towards nuclear annihilation. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic. Love to experience historic events unfolding in real time in broad daylight with genuinely no democratic pressure valve or no way of combating even a little bit of it, because the very idea of the democratic process existing is blowing up right in front of our eyes. Something that I have talked about routinely, but it still sucks when you are experiencing it. Definitely not great. Dodgers claim they, but I've seen conflicting reports. Bangladesh diye Fatih Altaylı da diyor. Eski hali o olabilir. Ben yaşlıyım. 33 yaşında adamım ondan. All right. Here's Seymour Hersh, legendary journalist, one of the greatest living investigative reporters of basically every generation. Okay, now Turks used to say Bangladesh, and now they say Bangladesh. So I wasn't wrong. Turks used to mispronounce it. And because I'm 33 years old and an old man, anyway, this is completely irrelevant to the main point of contention here. Let's get to Seymour Hersh's reporting on this. As you guys know, Cy Hersh had a fantastic reporting on the Nord Stream pipeline at a time when the media was just fully invested in the narrative that the pipeline was actually exploded by Russia itself, which was really stupid, and yet they still tried to go along with this narrative. Cy Hersh, on the other hand, had reporting that the CIA was involved in it, if not directly caused this attack. I still lean on the side of CIA involvement rather than Ukrainians doing this on their own, considering the sophistication necessary and the training necessary to be able to conduct a deep sea explosion such as this one. Like the tools necessary and the expertise necessary to be able to do this and the training necessary to be able to do this, I don't think Ukraine is capable of pulling that off on their own. Anyway, he's come out with more reporting. Of course, before that, he exposed the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, the torture at Abu Ghraib, and he is, a very famous reporter for that. And mainstream resources never actually, they never forgave him for that. Okay. As someone who scuba dives a lot, it's fairly easy to strap explosives to a pipe. Please stop. Please. The idea that you are going to be able to successfully blow up a pipeline 75 meters underwater in hostile territory without getting caught or without actually blowing yourself up on accident, like, because you have to be able to successfully implement this, and therefore you have to consistently train for this sort of thing. You are not Tom Cruise, man. It's a thick ass pipe that was designed to withstand like natural disasters. Anyway, chatters be like, nah, not me. I'm different. Nah, dude. I'm Tom Cruise, brother. What you mean? I'm Thomas Jebediah Cruise. Is Mission Impossible more like Mission Possible for me? Armchair saboteur is crazy. Yeah. Dude, it's just like when I dove to see the coral reef, you know? Same experience necessary. There are probably a collective total of like 100 people on the planet that are capable of doing a sophisticated act of sabotage like this. And there are chatters in my chat, like literally so much pressure, both literally and figuratively, to be able to conduct this without getting caught. And you guys are like, nah, this is just like when I went to Mexico and I saw some turtles on the beach before, scuba diving a little bit. It's crazy. There's like maybe maximum 100 people that can do this. And I guess all 100 of them are in my chat right now. I can handle thick pipe under pressure. This is a report on what is most likely to happen in Iran as early as this weekend, according to Israeli insiders and American officials I've relied upon for decades. Okay. Sai is deeply embedded in Washington, D.C. His reporting is excellent. He has a tremendous track record. So I have no reason to believe that this is not going to happen. Oh, shit. Is this only is paywalled? I thought this article was... God damn it. Okay. American officials, it will entail heavy American bombing. I've vetted this reporting with a longtime U.S. official in Washington who told me that it will all be under control if Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei departs. Just how that might happen, short of his assassination, is not known. There's been a great deal of talk about American firepower on targets inside Iran, but little practical thinking, as far as I can tell, about how to remove a revered religious leader with enormous following. I reported from afar on the nuclear and foreign policy of Israel for decades. My 1991 book, The Samson Option, told the story in the making of the Israeli nuclear bomb and America's willingness to keep the project secret. The most important unanswered question about the current situation will be the response of the world, including that of Vladimir Putin, the Russian president who has been an ally of Iran's leaders. The United States remains Israel's most important ally, although many here and around the world abhor Israel's continuous murderous war in Gaza. The Trump administration is in full support of Israel's current plan to rid Iran of any trace of a nuclear weapons program while hoping the Ayatollah-led government in Tehran will be overthrown. Okay, we found a way to bypass the paywall. Saad Abedin basically summarizes the Substack post. A major U.S. bombing campaign against Iran is expected to begin as early as this weekend, according to his trusted Israeli and American sources. Approved by the Trump administration, the strikes will focus on key military and nuclear infrastructure, including the fortified Fordow facility, while Iran's most advanced centrifuges are located deep underground. The delay in timing, Hersh reports, is due to Trump's desire to avoid disrupting U.S. markets when trading opens Monday. The operation goes beyond targeting Iran's nuclear capabilities. It aims to destabilize the country's leadership. U.S. and Israeli planners are counting on the internal unrest to break out, hoping that strikes on military bases, police stations, and administrative centers will incite broader opposition. Hersh says there are even unconfirmed reports that Ayatollah Khamenei may have left Tehran. While some in Washington favor installing a moderate religious figure to lead the country in a transitional phase, Israeli officials reportedly reject this, pushing instead for full political control through a loyal replacement. These internal disagreements reflect a deeper divide over what post-strike Iran looks like. Intelligence circles are also looking to Iran's ethnic minorities, particularly Azeris with alleged CIA ties, as potential tools to spark wider dissent. Iran has a shit ton of different ethnicities. Azeris, of course, are aligned with, well, not the Iranian Azeris. I wouldn't say that all of them are, but Azerbaijan is aligned with Israel and Turkey. And Israel obviously gave weapons to Azerbaijan in exchange for a pipeline that basically supplies 65% of the entirety of the Israeli energy grid. That pipeline goes through, that pipeline, of course, goes through Khamenei as Azeri. Yeah, but saying that there is discontent amongst different ethnic groups. One of the groups that they could tap could be the Azeri groups. There's also Kurdish factions as well. Is this reporter to be trusted? Yes, this is a summarization of the Substack article from Seymour Hersh. Seymour Hersh's reporting is fairly solid. Now, again, this might not unfold at all. Okay, this is not a given. Make no mistake. This is not a given. The plan, according to Hersh, bears resemblance to the previous Western interventions in Libya and Syria, where external pressure led to long-term instability and suffering. The attack on Iran, he warns, could have similar consequences, potentially fragmenting the country and inflaming the region, all while being driven by Netanyahu's strategic aims and Trump's desire for a major geopolitical win. You have Armenia, I guess, as like a kind of ally to Iran. But Russia has already dropped Armenia, as you guys know. And you have Azerbaijan as an ally to Israel as far as like regional allegiances goes, and Armenia's capabilities of like defending or aiding Iran are nothing. Armenia dropped Russia first and can't be trusted by Iran at all. Yeah. Israel said they moved their enriched uranium to a secure location. What is this? When Hasan was asked similar questions, DHS disputed this claim for lying for likes. Now we have another person being grilled about their views on Israel by feds at an airport. Why are U.S. border police so concerned about people's views of another country? This is what Trump's new ideological screening looks like. Journalists being detained and deported at the airport because of what they wrote. Then began the first interview. The questions focused almost entirely on my reporting about the Columbia student protests. From 2022 to 2024, I attended Columbia for an MFA program on a student visa, and when the encampment began in April of last year, I began publishing daily missives to my Substack, a blog that virtually no one, except apparently the U.S. government, seemed to read. To Officer Martinez, the pieces were highly concerning. He asked me what I thought about it all, meaning the conflict on campus, as well as the conflict between Israel and Hamas. He asked my opinion on Israel, of Hamas, of the student protesters. He asked if I was friends with any Jews. He asked for my views on a one versus two state solution. He asked who was at fault, Israel or Palestine. He asked what Israel should do differently. The Department of Homeland Security, which governs the CBP, claims that any allegations that I've been arrested for political beliefs are false. Exact same line of questioning that is directional because of the information that they have prior to the detainment. Okay. Some of the questions that they asked them are different, but directly due to your reporting. Interesting. Yeah. It's also interesting that the Department of Homeland Security literally responded in the same way. It claims that any allegations that have been arrested for political beliefs are false. Once again, they're lying for likes. This person that they deported, because I'm an American citizen, that person wasn't. So obviously, that person stating that person was deported. If I wasn't an American citizen, I probably would also be deported.
Week mark if no deal is reached. She would not answer that. I asked the question of, we have heard from you.
There's a huge slop tube war over whether you were lying about that. Lamau, they're so dumb. Brother, are they dumb? Or are we all dumb for even participating or even acknowledging that. Like, there is currently, like, yeah, those guys want to make money. Şimdi birazdan gelir. 5-10 dakikaya ama saat 3'te yaparsan yerim. Eyvallah. Okay. You need to start permitting them? No, it's fine. Because you and he weren't arrested. They're using a technicality. You were detained, so they're not lying technically. No, I never said I was arrested. I said I was detained. Which they didn't say wasn't the case anyway. They didn't deny that detention took place. They simply denied that it was done on political dissidence. Like, the basis for the detainment was not because of me being a political dissident of this administration, of this regime. That's the only thing that they denied. They don't deny that detention took place. They say that it did. Notice how that's the one thing that they say no to. That's the one thing that they choose to lie about.
U.S. officials and Israeli officials that they believe Iran never wants to make a deal, that they're going to just string us along. How can you ensure that they are not stringing us along when you are now effectively adding time to the table? Remember, this is now the second deadline they've given Iran. The first one was 60 days. Now they're adding an extra 2 weeks. And there's no real answer to that other than the fact that Carolyn Levitt is saying that the president believes that there is, and I want to say, a substantial chance for negotiation. That's what they use. But we still don't have any idea why exactly they mean that. And one of the things she told me is that Iran is incredibly weakened, and that gives them some kind of insight into the potential for a diplomatic deal because Iran has become so weakened. But still, we don't have a lot of answers as to what this means if Iran doesn't come to the table. The other part of this that has been so fascinating is the U.S. Middle Eastern envoy, Steve Witkoff, who we know has been in touch with his Iranian counterparts, has been really leading the talks in this process. He's not attending the talks with European nations on Friday in Switzerland. She did not have an answer for why that was. He has been in touch. We know that the United States has been in touch with Iranians. We still don't know if that's direct or indirect. But why exactly we're not taking part in diplomatic talks between European countries and Iran on Friday, that still also remains to be seen. So we're trying to piece together what it means at the end of a 2-week deadline. And again, as you said, yes, Donald Trump uses this a lot, but this is a very specific thing that he is giving 2 weeks for. And there's still questions as to what if this is what he wants diplomacy, what happens if they don't come to the table? Is he going to extend again? And we simply don't know the answer to that. One thing we do know, though, is that Donald Trump behind the scenes has said that he does not want to enter into a long-term war, into a long-term conflict in the Middle East. So clearly here he is using that going forward and saying he's not doing anything, giving 2 weeks for negotiations.
We have Jeff Zeleny with us, as well as Evelyn Farkas. She's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia. Thanks both for being with us. Jeff, what did you make of these remarks, and specifically that promise of a decision within 2 weeks?
Look, what this is President Trump not necessarily putting the brakes on, but slowing down the conversation that he and his administration are in a rush toward war. He's been hearing a lot of criticism, as we know. Interestingly, Steve Bannon, one of his longtime advisors, came into the White House this morning. Steve Bannon has been leading the charge to get the administration, the president, to
Yeah. This is also funny. I thought Iran was a week away from getting nukes. So was Trump giving Iran the time to get nukes or what? Oh my God. It almost feels like that was a bullshit reason for Israel to just do it first. It was almost as though that was a bullshit reason that Israel used to strike Iran, that the American government, with its endless appetite for death, destruction, and destabilization in the region, was happy to abide by. You know, since that is precisely what we said about Iraq as well.
Not launch military strikes. We do know that played, but what this is the president, and you are right, Brenna, I've lost track of the number of times the 2-week mantra.
Israeli strike in Tehran tonight. Area under attack is reportedly blocked by ambulances and IRGC vehicles. Waiting for more details. So this is, that's what they were saying, like that there is a, this is where Khamenei is, and that Israel might have struck him or something. I don't know. But then they also say that he's like not even in Iran. So who knows? Explosions reportedly been heard in 2 NATO embassies so far from Iranian missiles and drones. One yesterday 200 meters away from Lithuania's embassy in Tel Aviv, and now Norway's embassy. What would happen if one of the Iranian missiles actually end up hitting a NATO embassy? Will that invoke Article 4 or 5? I don't know. Khamenei is in North Korea getting a nuke. Yes, that's what he's doing. He flew to DPRK to get nukes. He's going to come back. He's like, no more fatwa. The Norway embassy, I saw someone earlier saying that it was a grenade or something. I just don't see any reason for anyone in the region to strike the embassy of Norway. It's like the Norwegian embassy is the dumbest one to strike because out of all of the European partners, Norway is literally one of the most anti-Israel ones. Obviously, that doesn't mean much, but it is one of the most critical. It is one of the most critical countries against Israel. So that makes no sense.
Has been used most recently with Vladimir Putin. He will give him 2 weeks. But I think on this matter specifically, clearly the president is trying to buy himself some time here and to see if a diplomacy can work. But what the question is, what does this do for Israel? Because there has been a sense of urgency. There was an urgent need when you heard some of the hawkish voices like Lindsey Graham and others saying now is the time. Other presidents have not had this moment. President Trump clearly does not see this as urgent as some of the hawkish views do, as Israel clearly sees it. So that is the question. Is this going to sort of just go off into the night here, or is this actively something that the president will sort of stay on top of? The bombing is going to continue with or without U.S. involvement here. So now what we will have to see is what Israel does in response to this. But for now, the big picture here is the president buying himself some time.
Exactly. He's buying time, Evelyn. Israel certainly doesn't believe that he has time on this. What do you think?
Well, I think, Brianna, that he does have some time, certainly to make a decision about whether to use military force. But I think that that window probably already closed, because at the end of the day, even if you were to bomb the, deep underground and take out those facilities, the Iranians still would need to come to a negotiating table and agree that they're going to abandon their plans for a nuclear arsenal, and that they would, agree to having verification in place. So you still need diplomacy. And I think at this stage of the game, if we use military might, it makes it harder to get to diplomacy. So I predict that we probably will not use force to take out those facilities, and instead we will use diplomacy. But I think the open question is, as your commentator just said, your correspondent, the Israelis, how long do they plan to fight this fight? Because if the United States doesn't exercise its diplomatic might, and if the Europeans fail, then this war, like the war in the Russia-Ukraine context, will continue. So that is the danger, frankly, that the war will continue and that it could actually spread.
Evelyn, please stay with us. Jeff, a quick question to you. We have less than a minute before we go to break, but to Kristen Holmes' question of Caroline Levitt, how do we know Iran isn't stringing the U.S. along?
We don't. We don't know that at all. I mean, in fact, the president himself has suggested that. He said the time for diplomacy has run its course just a couple days ago. So we do not know that. That is certainly part of the history here. But look, this is something that the president, his whole public life over 10 years has been not engaging in this kind of war. So I'm not sure that we should find this all that surprising. Right. Over the last couple days, there has been more in keeping in lines of his fairly consistent views.
President Trump.
What? Bunker buster used 10 minutes ago? What are you talking about? Dude's like, I'm in Fordow right now. I'm hearing it. It's a B-2 bomber above my head.
We'll do what's best for America. I trust his judgment. He's a tremendous friend, a tremendous world leader, a tremendous friend of Israel and the Jewish people. And we will do what we have to do, and we are doing it. We are committed to destroying the nuclear threat, the threat of a nuclear annihilation against Israel.
Huge explosion in Tehran. I saw it on Hersh. Tehran is not where the Fordow facility is. Oh, I think you're talking about, the explosion in Tehran. We already covered it. I don't know if that was a bunker buster or just a regular strike from Israeli planes.
We're able to do it. And we, of course, will make our own determination. But I have to say that the partnership with the United States, the partnership with President Trump, with whom I speak to almost every day, is incredible. I think his resolve, his determination, and his clarity when he says Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And for that to take place, Iran cannot enrich uranium. It's as simple as that. He gave them the chance to do it through negotiations. They strung him along. You don't string along Donald Trump. He knows He knows the game. And I think that we're both committed to making sure that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, and they won't.
In your heart of hearts, is the United States going to come on board and help you with these strikes?
That's a decision for the president to make, but I can tell you that they're already helping a lot because they're participating in the protection of the skies over Israel and its cities with THAAD missile batteries that are in Israel, with Aegis ships that are on the shore of it that are fighting alongside our pilots to knock out drones. I think it's a remarkable cooperation.
I want to say that a dictator like Khamenei, who leads a country like Iran and has engraved on his flag the annihilation of the State of Israel, this terrible goal of destroying Israel, cannot continue to exist.